There is a glass on the windowsill by my bed, plain and cheap, the kind that comes free in a box of oats, and every night of my married life I have filled it with water before I put out the lamp. In the morning, the winter light comes through it, and through what stands in it, and I do not look at it too long. I am 24 years old. I have been married 3 years, and the winter I am going to tell you about was the winter I was 19, the winter before my wedding, when my mother sat down across the table from me with her hands folded and told me that the money had been set aside and that it was a kindness. I said yes. I want you to hear that plainly, because it matters, and because I will not take it back. I said yes, and I meant it, and I was 19, and it took me 5 more years to understand what a yes is worth when nobody has told you the whole list of what else you might have said. Our district is old order, and the ordnung we keep is not a cruel thing. Whatever the English think when they slow their cars down to look at us. It is a fence, and a fence keeps things in and keeps things out, and mostly what it keeps out is ruin. We have no insurance. That is the first thing you must understand before you understand anything else about that winter. There is no card in anybody's pocket. When Amos Byler's barn went down in the wind, the men came with their tools, and the women came with the food, and it went up again in 2 days, and nobody wrote a bill. That is how we carry a thing too heavy for one family. But a body is not a barn. You cannot raise a body in 2 days with 40 men. The nearest dentist was an hour out by hired driver, and a driver costs, and the visits go on and never end, and there is no year in a farm family's life where that money is simply sitting there. So the plain answer, the one the older women had come to, the one my grandmother had come to and her mother before her, was to have it done at once, all of it. The winter before a girl married, and be fitted, and be finished. One trouble instead of 40 years of trouble. My mother said it just that way, over the table, with the lamp between us. One less trouble for you later. She was not hard about it. I want that said. She had put money by from the eggs and from the quilt she sold at the fall sale, and she had done it quietly over 2 years without telling anybody, because she loved me, and because she did not want me starting a marriage owing anybody anything. She asked me if I wanted it. She looked at me and she asked, and I said yes. I was 19. I had finished my schooling at the 8th grade, like everybody, and everything I knew about my own body I had learned from women who had all answered the same question the same way. The changes were small, and they came so slowly that no single one of them was worth mentioning to anybody. I ate last. That was not new. The women eat last, after the men and the little ones, and I had eaten last my whole life. But now I ate last, and I ate soft, and I built the plate without thinking about it. And by the 2nd year of my marriage, I could not have told you the last time I had eaten an apple off the tree instead of cooked down into sauce. At weddings there is celery, whole stalks of it, standing up in jars on every table, because that is how we do it. I learned to be busy with the coffee pot when the celery went around. I stopped laughing the way I had laughed. Not on purpose. I only found that my hand came up when something was funny, came up quick and flat over my mouth, and I would turn a little toward the wall. My husband thought it was modesty, and he never once said a word to me about my face or my plate, not then and not since. He is a decent man, and he was raised by decent people, and I will not have anybody hearing this and thinking otherwise of him. My sister-in-law told me once that I had gotten so ladylike since the wedding, and she meant it kindly, and I said something back in Pennsylvania Dutch about growing up at last, and we both laughed, and my hand came up. And I learned to hold my face for G-May. Church is in the homes, 3 hours on a backless bench, and the singing is slow. A single line of the Ausbund can run out longer than any song the English have. You cannot cover your mouth for 3 hours of singing. So I learned a way of holding the lips, a small, even set of them, that let the sound out and did not let anything be seen. I practiced it. I practiced it at the wash line where nobody was, the way another girl might practice a hymn. None of that felt like grief. That is the part I cannot make people understand. It felt like housekeeping. It felt like a woman learning to keep herself neat. I did not have a word for it yet. The plate stopped fitting after my first baby. I want to say something here, gently, before I go on, because this is the part where I usually have to stop and get a breath. If you have been sitting with me this long, if any of what I am describing has put you in mind of your own kitchen, your own August G, then please subscribe and stay a while with me. And please leave a comment and tell me one small thing you learned to hold quiet. I read them. I read all of them. It is the only way I know that I am not the only woman who ever practiced her face at a wash line where nobody could see. Nobody had told me the plate could stop fitting. I have since been told it is common, that a woman's face changes with a child the way the rest of her does, that a thing fitted to a 19-year-old will not sit right forever. Nobody had told me, so when it began, I thought it was something I was doing wrong. I thought I had gotten careless. It was August, and it was canning season, and if you have not done a canning season, you cannot know what it takes out of a person. The jars boiling, the kitchen at 90 degrees with the wood stove going because you cannot can on air, 40 quarts of tomatoes, and then the peaches, and then the beans, and the baby on your hip through all of it. I carried an ache through that whole season, every day of it. I would not say it. There was no room in that kitchen for me to say it, and there was no money in that year for me to say it, and my mother-in-law was there most days, and she had had hers done at 18, and had never once complained about anything in her life that I knew of. So I put a fold of clean cloth in at night, and I got through August and September and most of October. My husband asked me twice if I was well, and twice I told him I was only tired, and he took me at my word the way a man does when his wife has never once given him cause to doubt her. That was not his failing. It was mine, and it was the failing of a whole way of speaking that I had learned before I could read. I did not have a word for it yet. It was my husband who said go. I had not asked him to. He came in one evening and found me standing at the sink, not washing anything, just standing, and he said we would hire a driver on Thursday. He did not make me explain. He is a quiet man, and quiet men in our district are not cold men. They are men who have decided that doing a thing is better than discussing it. The driver was an Englishman named Ray who has taken half the district to town for 20 years and knows better than to fill a quiet ride with talk. It is 9 miles. In the buggy, that is a morning. In Ray's car, it was 11 minutes, and I remember thinking that 11 minutes was a very short distance to have kept a whole life on the other side of. The office was in a low brick building beside a bank. Inside, there was carpet, and the heat came out of the floor from somewhere, and there was a table with magazines fanned out on it in a half circle the way you would fan cards. Women on the covers, every one of them laughing with her whole face, straight at me, and nobody's hand anywhere near her mouth. I sat down, and I did not pick one up. They gave me a clipboard with questions on it. Insurance, it said, and I wrote none, and there was a line for my regular dentist, and I left it empty because I had not had one, not ever, not once in 24 years. A little girl across the room asked her mother in a loud voice why that lady was wearing a hat, and her mother hushed her, and I smiled at the child with my lips closed the way I had practiced. I had my cap strings in my fist. I did not notice until they called my name and I had to let go, and they were damp and pressed flat with the shape of my fingers still in them. The room in back had a window with the blind up and a chair in the middle of it. The chair tipped back when he moved a lever, slow, like a wagon seat going over a hill, and the ceiling came into view, white and clean, and I looked at it and I thought, I am 24, and this is the first time in my life a person who studied this has looked at me. He was maybe 60, and he had a way of narrating what he was doing before he did it, which I found I liked. He worked a while on the fit of it. He was quiet, and I could hear the heat coming up out of the floor, and then he stopped. He set down what he was holding, and he rolled his stool back a few inches, and he took his glasses off, and he asked me how old I had been. I said 19. He did not say anything for a moment. He did not shake his head at me, and he did not say a hard word about my mother or my father or my husband or my bishop or my district, and I have thought about that a great deal since. He could have. English people sometimes do when they find out how we live, and it never once helped anybody. Instead, he asked me, very quietly, who it was that had decided. I said that I had. I said my mother asked me, and I said yes. And then he asked the thing. He asked whether anyone had ever told me there was a way to keep them. I said no. I said it before I had thought about it, and then I heard myself say it, and the ceiling went blurry and stayed that way for a while. There had been a way. He told me what it would have been, money, more than my mother had by, but not more than a family finds when it decides a thing matters. And years, a long patient stretch of years, and a ride to town every few months, over and over into my 20s. It would have been hard. It might not have worked for all of them. He was honest with me about that, and I was grateful, because I did not want to be handed a fairy tale about a life I did not get. But it existed. Somewhere in the world that winter, while my mother was counting egg money at the table and I was saying yes, there was a second thing that could have been said, and not one person in my life had ever set it down in front of me so that I could look at it. That is the whole of it. That is what I carried home in Ray's car with my hands in my lap. Not that anybody wronged me. My mother did not wrong me. She gave me 2 years of quiet saving and the best answer she had ever been given, and she gave it out of love, and I will say that in front of anyone. But a choice existed, and it was never set in front of me, and a yes that is the only word in the room is not really a yes at all. I did not have a word for it yet. I did not have one until that man asked me a question and waited. He gave me an appointment card for the fitting. It is in the drawer of the sewing table still, under the pincushion, and I could not tell you why I have kept it except that it is the only piece of paper I own that came from somebody asking me something first. I told my husband that night, in the dark, after the lamp. I told it badly. I cried in a way I do not usually let myself, and he did not say much, because he is not a man of many words, but he put his hand flat on my back and left it there until I was finished. And in the morning, he had already been out and back, and he said, about our girls, that when it came time we would find out everything first. All of it, every road. And then we would tell them, and then we would ask. That is my husband. I say his part of this out loud wherever I tell it, because a story like mine can be carried off and used against good men and a good people, and I will not lend it out for that. I did not go to the bishop about it. There was nothing to bring him. No one broke the ordnung. There is no rule anywhere in it that says a girl must not be told the whole list. It simply had not occurred to anybody, for 4 generations, that the list had more than one thing on it. My mother and I have talked about it once. She sat with her hands folded the way she had that winter, and I told her what the dentist asked me, and she was quiet a long time, and then she said, in Dutch, that she had not known. That was all. And I told her that I know she did not, and that she did the kindest thing she had, and both of those things are true at the same time, and I have stopped trying to make one of them cancel the other. My oldest is 4. She has all of hers, small and white and crooked in front, and when she laughs, she puts her whole face into it. Sometimes I catch my hand starting up toward my mouth when she does, and I make it come back down and rest on the table. I want her to see a woman laughing, and I have begun to say a thing out loud in that kitchen, over and over, so that it will be old and ordinary to her by the time it matters. There is always more than one way, and you are allowed to hear all of them before you answer. So this is what I would say to the wives watching, and to the girls who are 19 this winter with a wedding coming in November. I am not asking you to leave anything. I am not asking you to be angry at your mother or at your husband, and I would think less of anyone who took what I have said and turned it into a reason to look down on my people. We take care of each other in ways the English have forgotten how to do. When my father was laid up, 20 men brought in his corn, and not one of them mentioned it afterward. That is real, and it is ours, and I will not trade it for anything. But love and a full accounting are not the same thing, and I did not know that at 19. Somebody can love you completely and still hand you only the one answer they were handed. That is not cruelty. That is just what happens when a thing has been done the same way for so long that nobody remembers it was ever a decision. So before you answer about your teeth, about a doctor, about a baby, about anything at all that is going to belong to your body for the rest of your life, ask what else there is. Ask it out loud at the table with the lamp lit. Ask your husband to ask with you. Mine would have if either of us had known there was a question. Ask what it would cost and how many years and how many rides to town. You may find the answer is still yes. Mine might have been yes anyway, but it would have been mine. There is a glass on the windowsill by my bed. I have stopped minding it mostly. What I mind is that I was never shown the other road, and I am telling you about it so that somebody younger than me gets to stand at the fork and see both. Thank you for sitting with me tonight. It is a strange thing to say these words out loud after keeping them behind a practiced mouth for 5 years, and it is easier because you were here. Go gently with your mothers this week. They were 19 once too, and somebody handed them one answer as well. The rest of it, that winter, the wedding that came after, and the years I have not told anybody about, I wrote it all down in my book, A Quiet and Faithful Home, and it's in the pinned comment.